Hey everyone, I am back. It's been a couple weeks since I posted a video and I thought today I would tell you guys all about my birth story. I've had a lot of you asking when I was going to share it and you're all excited to hear about it, and I'm sure you're wondering if I got everything I wanted on my birth plan. So I'll start back to Thursday, August the 1st. I actually had recorded a video for you guys, my 39-week pregnancy update. I recorded it, didn't even get to upload it or anything because I ended up going into labor that night. So that morning, let's say 9:30 was my appointment. I got my first vaginal check. I was 1.5 centimeters, 80% effaced, and at 0 stations. So I was pretty excited to hear all of those, you know, somewhat progression. And then later on I went home and sat on my birth ball, kind of tried to open my pelvis up a little bit to try to get her a little bit lower. So about 10 o'clock that night, I had just gotten Landon to sleep. I started noticing during my time trying to put him to sleep that I was having some contractions. And I know I posted on Facebook. I was kind of battling back and forth in my mind whether they were Braxton Hicks or if they were the real deal. And so I started timing them. They were about 5 minutes apart. They were about 30 to 45 seconds long, and about an hour later, maybe an hour and 15 later, he had finally gotten home from work, and I was like, okay, I think I'm in labor, but I'm not sure, so we're just gonna kind of see how things go over the next couple of hours. So about 1 o'clock in the morning, I told him, let's go to bed, I'm tired, I've got to get some rest. If this is labor, I need to try to get some rest. So we go upstairs. Instantly, as I'm laying in bed, the contractions got more painful. They were still bearable, but more painful. And I think I tossed and turned for probably about an hour and said, forget it. I'm just gonna get up and go to bed. I'm gonna go downstairs. And at that point, I think I called my mom. I did record a small video, which I'll post somewhere around here if it's viewable. It's really, really dark because it was dark down here, so hopefully you guys can see it. It's 2:21 in the morning. I've been having contractions since about 10 o'clock this evening, night, whatever you want to call it. Lasting right now about 3 minutes apart. Not lasting for 3 minutes apart, 3 minutes apart, lasting for 30 seconds to 60 seconds. So I've already given the call to my doula and my mom, and we'll see what happens from here. Sometime around 2, maybe 2:15, I called my mom and said, yeah, I think I'm in labor, come on out. I think around 3:45 is when they got here. I kind of just walked back and forth down here by myself. I didn't want to wake him, figured he could just stay up there with Landon, and no point in waking him and getting him exhausted too. So I just kind of walked back and forth, and throughout all of this hour and 45 minutes waiting for my parents to get there, contractions were about 3 minutes apart. They were much more tolerable when I was walking, but sitting down they kind of slowed down a little bit, but they were more painful. If that even makes any sense. So 3:45 a.m. my parents get here. I go up at 4 o'clock in the morning, wake him up and said, we're going to the hospital, my parents are here. And we head out. We immediately went to the emergency room, got sent to triage. They put me on a monitor, checked my contractions, checked me. So keep in mind, at 9 o'clock the day before, so 9 o'clock, 9:30 the previous day, I was at 1.5 centimeters. At this point, 4:30 in the morning maybe, I had progressed to 3 to 4 centimeters. So definitely labor was happening, and so they went ahead, put me in a room. I called my doula. I had been talking to her throughout the night just to keep her updated on what was going on, but wanted to wait until we knew for sure that I was in labor and I was going to a room. Okay, it is 5:45, and yeah, 5:45, and I just got admitted. I am 3 centimeters, so looks like we will be having a baby today. Don't know when she's coming, but we're having a baby today. I'd say once we got into the room, things kind of started to slow down. It was still kind of progressing the same until about maybe 7 o'clock in the morning. and then it started to kind of just slow down. My doula and I walked the halls. We all actually walked the halls for probably 30 minutes. They wanted to do intermittent fetal monitoring, so 30 minutes on, 30 minutes off. It kind of made it hard. I think it kind of slowed things down, me having to be in the bed for 30 minutes, because then I couldn't keep walking and keep the contractions going. But I think my body kind of just knew that I was exhausted. I hadn't had any sleep. Keep in mind, I had taken a nap with Landon that day before, so thank God I did have a small nap in me, but no sleep overnight just kind of kept things really exhausted, and going through the contractions, it was kind of exhausting. Walking the halls was exhausting. About 10 o'clock in the morning, they came back and checked me, and there was no progress. They gave me the option at that point to either go home or have them break my water. And my doula was like, you know, breaking your water, it may not even do anything. It may end up just keeping it the same. I think you need to go home. And of course, some of you ladies on Facebook were also saying, yes, go home. Your body knows what it's doing. So I listened to her, listened to all of you, and you know, I wanted to go home and rest anyways. So Thursday was the 31st. Then Friday was the 1st of August. So sorry for the confusion. So 10 a.m. they checked me. Well, hadn't really progressed any at all. Still 80% effaced, 3 to 4 centimeters. And at that point, I think my contraction, the last contraction before I left, had been 16 minutes from the previous one. So we knew things were slowing down. Like I said, I think my body just kind of knew that I needed to rest, and it was kind of slowing down labor. I will say I was kind of disappointed because I was ready for her to be there, and Landon had told me she was coming on the 1st, so I was kind of hoping he would be right, because that would have been kind of cool. But I decided to go home based on, you know, how I felt and needing rest, and didn't really care for the nurse that I did have. She was kind of rough with my arm with the hep lock, and my arm ended up being really bruised for like a week. But so we went home. I was able to get a couple of hours, maybe 3 hours of a nap. My parents had Landon, they had left, and I woke up with contractions starting again. They were pretty much 15 minutes apart for a while. A little bit stronger than they had previously been, but... So we are back home. Sometime around, let me think, what time was it? Sorry, I'm really tired. I was able to get a 3-hour nap when I got back home, but while at the hospital right before I left, sometime I'd say around 10 o'clock, she checked me, and there were no changes. I was still only between 3 and 4 centimeters dilated, and contraction, hold on. Went and got something to eat, I got a nap, and hopefully now I can maybe get a shower, get things going again. I'm still obviously having contractions. They're just not, they're not often, and they're still mild, you know, they're kind of like a heavy period cramp at this point. So anyways, that's just that quick little update. I just stayed home, and my mom came back, did dinner, we just kind of hung around the house, and then 10 o'clock that night, at this point I had been in labor for 24 hours, and I was like, okay, they're 5 minutes apart, they're lasting a minute. They told me until they are intense, 5 minutes apart, lasting a minute, that's when I'd come back. That's when I could come back. And I was like, okay, there's got to be something going on, some change, something. So we went ahead and went back to the hospital. It took forever this time for them to get me up to the triage room. Once they finally came in and checked me, I remember I kept telling him, I was like, I have got to be at least a 6. I was like, there's just no way there's not a change. And she checks me and she goes, okay, you're about 4 to 5. And I think both of us were kind of like, what the crap? Like,
she said 3 to 4.
Did she say 3 to 4? No, she told me 4 to 5, but I heard her tell the nurse 3 to 4.
That's right.
So it was kind of like was she lying to me, or did she just confuse herself? I don't know. So she ended up letting me stay in triage, and she said, you can walk the halls if you want. She said at 1:30, we'll come back and check you. So I think by the time I actually got into triage and they checked me, it was 11:30. So 2 hours later was when she was going to come back and recheck to see if there was any progress. So I immediately got out of bed. They didn't do any monitoring or anything at that point. So I was able to get out of bed, and it was like they went from being 5 minutes apart to instantly 2 minutes apart, and that's when they really started picking up, and I was like, okay, I think I'm in active labor now. So I could tell that change of, you know, pre-labor to active labor, it was definitely a significant difference. I'd say right about 1 o'clock in the morning, I was like ready for her to come back. I'm like, okay, where is this nurse? She needs to come back. I want her to check me. I was like, I better be at least 6 centimeters. I was like, I need to be. I was like, if I'm not, I don't know if I could do this anymore. And of course, you know, he kept saying, you know, you can do this. We're going to do this. And I was like, I don't know. I did have a lot of moments of, I can't do this. This is getting hard. It hurts. And lots of ow. And
what I told her was, you know, take each contraction as they come. We'll take one. We'll deal with it and move on to the next one. Don't worry about how far you progressed when the check comes, because by this point, hour and a half, almost 2 hours of pretty intense contractions. You know, she had to progress some point or somewhat. And like I said, I told her just, you know, keep dealing with the one you're at now, and don't worry about it, and we'll keep going. And that's what we did.
Yeah, it was definitely and of course I thought somebody was in the room next to me in triage, so I'm like, I hope she doesn't hear me. I hope I'm not. I just kept thinking, I hope I'm not annoying this person beside me, because I wasn't quiet at that point. I was definitely more vocal as it got closer to 1:30, and then as I kept looking at the clock on the monitor, and I'm like, oh my goodness, you know. And I liked seeing the contractions on the monitor, so not knowing like what they looked like, I wanted to see what they looked like, and it just, so much was going through my head at that point. All I could think about was, I better have changed somewhat. There better have been some kind of dilation more than 4 to 5. So she comes back in about, I'd say maybe even before 1:30, and she goes, okay.
1:25.
Yeah, she goes, let me go ahead and check you. And she said, okay, you're about 6 to 7. I'm like, holy crap, thank you, Jesus. There was some kind of change. I felt so relieved to hear something. And she goes, okay, well, we'll go ahead and admit you, put you in a room. And at that point, it just really started picking up. When we got into that room, I was very vocal. I called the doula. Felt like it took her 20 hours to get there. She was ready before, but this time it was like 1:30 in the morning. She wasn't expecting me to call her at all, so she had to get herself ready and then come on out. But at that point, I was definitely vocalizing a lot, and it was hard for me to concentrate. Once she got there, it really, really helped, and I'm so glad that everybody suggested for me to get a doula, because she was able to help me concentrate on my moans and keep them at a deep tone. She even moaned with me, which was really helpful, because I could hear her, and I'm like, okay, and all I was thinking about was, I need to keep my voice low, I need to be quiet, keep my moans to the same tone, and sound a certain way, and it got my mind off of my contractions and how painful they were. And even though they were painful, I was still thinking about that. The concentrating on something else kind of just helped things go really fast. At that point, everything did go really fast. Before I knew it, I looked up and it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I kept thinking, oh my God, when are they checking me again? I want to know where I'm at. How much longer am I going to sit here and go through this? I pretty much stood beside the bed. I want to say probably around 2:30, the doula told me to lean over on the bed, and she put pressure on my hips. And was it longer after that? Later?
It was way later than that. It was probably 3:15, somewhere around 3:30, closer toward the end of it.
Yeah, I knew it was somewhere towards the end. My sense of time was just completely screwed up, because I had no sleep, and I was so exhausted at that point. I was ready for her to be here. And so at that point, the doula came over, put pressure on my hips to kind of relieve some of the pain. and it was like instantly I felt like I needed to push. I'm not sure if it was because her head was getting maybe squished in there, or I don't know. It just I just felt like I needed to push, and I kept saying I feel like I need to push, and my moans kind of got off track. I was more of like starting to kind of like not yell, but kind of just like through them, and so I'm laughing. And so of course the nurse told her, okay, stop putting pressure on there, and she told me to get on the bed, and she checked me, and I was at 8 centimeters. My water hadn't broke at all, and this whole time has not broke, and she was like, okay, your water is bulging. So I think pretty much after that, all through this, you know, they were doing monitoring, not monitoring, monitoring, not monitoring. I think she let me go an hour in between, so I did have to sit on it for 30 minutes and then off 30. She let me have it on for like 15 minutes and then be off for an hour, which was great.
The second nurse this time was way better.
Way better. The first 2 nurses that I had, because they were kind of at a transition point from like the 9 o'clock is when they all switch over.
Change.
That lady was annoying. She was really annoying. And this lady was great. She was just kind of down to earth, easygoing.
So we got to 8 centimeters. Water had not broke. It was bulging. And then we went to the shower.
Yes, basically they wanted me to get into the shower to see if I could pop my water. They would rather have had it in the shower than on the floor or wherever. And basically just wanted me to push as if I was pushing to push her out, but to see if we could just pop that water naturally before they, you know, try to do it on their own. So the contractions were like, they're like every minute and a half at this point, and so it felt like it took me 20 minutes just to even get to the shower and get in there, because I had to keep stopping, and I'm like, you know, I had to keep having him, like every time I had a contraction, it felt like he was like 10 miles away. I'm like, oh my God, get over here now. So I didn't really need my doula other than the fact that I needed her to keep me focused and maybe suggest things. But he was the person that I went to when I was like, okay, I'm having another contraction, get over here. So, do you want to tell this part of the story?
So, we start making the way to the bathroom, to the shower. It's not that far of a walk. She has a contraction. I don't know if she's standing or sitting on the bed at this point, but she has a contraction. She finishes it. We start walking toward the shower, and for some reason, I wasn't beside her. I was behind her, or wherever I was. We're at the doorway to the shower, and she starts having another contraction. Well, she kind of gives me one of these, like she needs to hold my hand. So I give her my hand, and it comes over her back like this. Well, she grabs it, my fingers like this, and starts going that way. Fingers don't bend that way. So I'm behind her screaming inside, not letting her know that she's about to break my fingers. And the contraction subsides and goes away, and then I get my fingers back. But we carry on, and we finally make it to the shower after that one.
I think if I had known that he was in pain, she's laughing too. I think if I had known that he was in pain, I either would have laughed about it, or I would have been like, you think that's pain? You think that's what pain is?
And at that point, I figured that my fingers being bent a little bit didn't compare to anything she was going through. So I figured it would be my best bet to just keep my mouth shut, deal with it for a minute, and then move on. My fingers were not broke. They hurt, but they did not break.
So I had no idea about this until after delivery, like way after delivery, like after I was finally like back to my normal state of mind. So anyways, I get to the shower, and I did a lot of squatting holding on the bar, squatting, trying to pop it. They actually thought I had popped my water, and I didn't. And I kind of was like,
she popped something, because there was a different color liquid in the bottom of the shower, so we thought that she popped it, but
I didn't think I did. But we headed back to the bed, and I don't remember if I waited. I think I was doing more laboring standing up on the side of the bed, and maybe still kept feeling like I had to push. So she went ahead and I guess had me back in the bed and said, okay,
we told the nurse that we thought her water broke, and she said, well, go ahead and get on the bed and let me check and see what's going on. And so she got on the bed, and then
of course my water was still intact. I don't know if she said it's still intact, or if you know, there was still a little bit there. I don't remember, but she said with the next contraction, you know, I'm going to feel inside and see what's going on. I think she just told me that just so I didn't know that she was going to break my water. But as I was having contractions, she used her finger just to pop it, and it was from like 0 to 100 with contractions. I mean, it instantly became painful. And of course the doula kept saying, you know, once your water breaks, she's here. You know, we need to get your water broken. And I want to say at that point I was probably 10 centimeters when she checked me and popped my water, because right after that, everything was like bam, like super fast.
If I had to guess, I would say you were close to 10. I don't know. But yeah, the water broke, and it was probably about 350 or so. And the doctor came in about 354, 355. And Mackenzie popped out at 4 o'clock on the dot, 4 a.m.
And it was funny because he said by 4 o'clock she'll be here. It was like he was trying to keep me sane earlier in the night.
It was 1:30. It was 1:30. I said 4 o'clock on the dot. She's coming out.
He said by 4 o'clock she's gonna be here, and I was like, she better be. She better be. If she's here at 4:01, I'm gonna kill you. No, I didn't tell him I was gonna kill him, but I kept thinking to myself, she better be here by 4 o'clock. He better not be wrong. She better be here, because at that point I had been in labor for what felt like a lifetime, and I was disappointed early in the day that I had to go back home. And then it just, you know, it was definitely a different experience from Landon, because his was a 12-hour labor. Even though I had an epidural, his was a 12-hour labor, and I totally thought second babies, everybody said, goes much faster. No, mine was over double the time. So
the active labor went twice as fast.
Absolutely.
Just the overall process from start to finish was a whole lot longer.
And the transitional phase definitely goes fast. When you go from 8 centimeters, 10 centimeters, I mean, that was like bam. And once she popped my water, I instantly felt like, okay, now I need to start pushing. And once the doctor finally came in, you know, she told me, you know, when I tell you to stop pushing, you have to stop pushing. And I never heard her tell me stop pushing. They all heard it. I didn't. I was just kind of in like this blurred state of mind because I was exhausted. I was going through this intense pain, and all I could think about was, I need to get her out. You know, like my body was just naturally pushing her, and I could feel her stuck in the birth canal after I stopped contracting, and it was just like this strange pressure. I'm like, oh my God, I need to push some more and push her out. And they definitely are right when they talk about the ring of fire, because my Lord, when her head was coming out, I was like, oh my God. I yelled. Admittedly, I yelled.
This was the first point where I could say she was really vocal. She said earlier in this video, that she was vocal early on. Yeah, she made some moans and some groans, but at this point, it's the first time she was actually really vocal.
That was intense. That was definitely intense, and nothing like I've ever felt in my life. But once her head was out, I mean, they kept telling me, she's right there, you're doing good. And right as soon as her head came out, it was an instant relief. Her shoulders just felt weird. It's like almost like octopusy jelly kind of weird feeling. Once she popped her arms and shoulders out, the doctor actually told me, reach down and grab your baby. And I was kind of like, okay. So I reached down, pulled her right on out, and laid right on my chest. And she was crying before she was even fully out of me. Like, she was already crying. And yeah, honey. Hi, baby. You are just so beautiful. I know I talked before, maybe in a previous video, about how she was posterior, so she was sunny side up, and she was born sunny side up. So I've never experienced a labor where I've had one facing down, one facing up. They both were born face up, so maybe that was the reason why my contractions were super intense. Alrighty, so I had to finish recording this video a couple days later because ran out of room on my camera. So the only thing that I left out of this rest of the video was just talking about did I get everything that I wanted on my birth plan. Pretty much everything went like I thought it would, aside from being a 30-hour labor. I didn't expect for it to be that long, but everything on my birth plan kind of fell together how I wanted it to, except for the delayed cord clamping. I'm pretty much assuming that the doctor didn't either read it or she just wanted things done her way. But looking back at the video and thinking back on it, it's obvious that she didn't even think twice about it. She just clamped it and cut it. It was immediately after I had her. So that was the only thing I didn't get. Everything else in my birth plan was pretty much thought out, and all the nurses paid attention to it and read it, and they said that everything seemed fine. They were very understanding with all of my requests, and I had a really good experience. I enjoyed my hospital experience, and the natural labor is definitely harder than an epidural, but it's doable. And I think if I was to have another baby, I would definitely do a natural labor again, because I did it once, why not do it again? But aside from that, I hope you guys enjoyed my birth story. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you are pregnant, I encourage you guys to do a natural labor, because I think that you'll be rewarded with just how proud you are of yourself. And I think it's just an experience that everybody should experience. It's totally different than getting an epidural, obviously, but I'm very glad that I did it and would absolutely do it again. So I will see you guys in one of my updates. Who knows when I'll post anything, but that's it for this video. I'll do a quick little shot of her. She's a little over 2 weeks old now, and 9-pound little chunker. She's eating like a pro, so we're just in love, and so is Landon.